You are now live.
Great. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Annapolis Education Commission. This is our August 30th, 2023 meeting, the start of a new school year, and we are very excited with the many changes that are going on, many changes within the senior leadership of the school system, new people, new ideas, more staff members, and we're going to hear a lot more about that tonight. We have our Board of Education President, Dr. Joanna Tobin, with us tonight, and a full quorum of our commission members. I'm going to go ahead and propose a revision to the agenda. I'm going to wait and do roll call slightly later when perhaps our other speakers come on and people can know, they will know who you are and explain your background a little bit when they come on. I would like to get someone to make a motion that we revise the agenda to start with approving the minutes. Anyone want to make that motion? Jess? I make a motion. Anyone want a second? I'm revising the agenda to go straight to approving minutes.
I can make a motion. Second.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Seconded. Thank you. Okay. The minutes, the draft minutes of the May 31st and June 28th minutes have been sent out to you for review. Does anyone have any proposed revisions to those minutes that you would like to see incorporated before they are finalized? Okay, seeing no one raise their hand, I will propose that the minutes be adopted as distributed. If someone would like to make a motion on adopting the minutes.
I'll move.
Motion made. I need a second.
Second.
Jamie Weaver, second. Thank you. Those 2 minutes have been adopted. Do we have any public testimony tonight? Seeing no anyone wanting to provide public testimony to the commission, you have a 3-minute slot, and then any follow-up questions from the commissioners if you would like to do so tonight or at another meeting in the future. Okay, seeing no public testimony, I will move on from that. We have Dr. Joanna Tobin with us, and she is going to give us a snapshot of the whirlwind changes and improvements that we're entering the new school year with. Dr. Tobin?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Glad to see you. I hope everybody had a lovely summer. I'll try to be quick. So obviously we're 3 days into the first week of school. I think there are always a few hiccups here and there, but my sense is it's been relatively smooth, especially compared to the last couple of years we've had. And so we're very grateful that on the whole, our transportation has been moving along pretty well. I think there's no question we're still making a few adjustments here and there, and we'll continue to do so in terms of now who's actually on the bus. And before I forget, I did have a question from Jess Packler, and I meant to get back to you, Jess. I did ferret out the fact that the transportation department decided not to do opt-in this year because they didn't get they felt the number of people who opted out last year didn't make that big enough difference to warrant the work. My own thought is that the way it was presented to a lot of families last year, the assumption was that you basically had to opt in unless you could be 100% sure your child would never, ever need transportation. And most people are not in that position. So I'm going to suggest, and it's just a suggestion since this is in the superintendent's lane, not the board, that we revisit that next year, because we also are rolling out some new notification systems and some other things that may make it a better proposition to move forward with opt-in moving forward. So I just wanted to update that one thing.
Thanks. I just want to say quickly, I think the confusion was more that there was no communication
Right.
on either
Right.
way, right? They didn't say,
Yeah.
you know what, never mind, we're not doing opt-in this
Right.
year. And so
Right.
people were like, I opted in last year. Does that mean I'm opted in forever?
That,
or
right.
where that
Right.
is? So I feel like maybe, I mean, I know it's school's already started, but it might be worth just having a communication go out and say,
Yep.
look, this is what's happening,
Right.
because I think people are confused.
I agree with you. And I think I've suggested that, and I think that's likely to be forthcoming. I think we obviously were transitioning over. So Janet referenced some new folks in the senior leadership at ACPS. So as of the beginning of July, Dr. Bedell officially has his full cabinet in place, along with his new chief of staff, Michael Dickerson, who comes to us previously as chief of staff in PG County. And prior to that, he was at in Baltimore County. And I think that's very valuable for a lot of reasons. Dr. Bedell is doing what we want our superintendent to do, which is to be out in the schools, in the community, making sure that he is making those connections. But you need somebody really to make sure that everything is running internally at the same time. And also with such a big system, Dr. Bedell obviously receives a lot of communications and so on, and we want to make sure that somebody is in a position to know what has to get immediately to him and what can't get sort of lost in the process. So, and in addition, we have a new chief operating officer, Dr. Bill Heiser, who has been out of the county for a few years, but was a number of years ago principal at North County. And prior to that, actually many years ago, was an AP at Annapolis High. So he has good familiarity with this part of the county as well. Our new chief academic officer, Dr. Marquise Duarte, who had been working for several years in, I forget what his previous position exactly was, but he is a very accomplished educator who has written books and is particularly knowledgeable and has a great track record on literacy, which obviously is of great interest and concern. And this comes at a time where, as you may be aware, we've received a LEADS grant from MSDE. We are going to be reconfiguring our early literacy curriculum to align with the science of reading. And so I think Dr. Duarte is well situated to oversee that and many other things, obviously, that are critical, but also are part of what's required of us with regard to Blueprint for Maryland's Future and a number of other things.
Yeah. Dr. Tobin, I would just let everybody know your Board of Ed meeting on the 23rd of August would be a really great one for everybody to go to the AACPS website and watch that video come, because those three gentlemen, the new leadership positions, so much was explained about the increased readiness for this year. You know, we're at 0 bus driver vacancies. You know, we don't have a backlog of people when those people get sick, but we have decreased the backlog of vacancies in so many areas that is a huge benefit to students. And then those three new leaders kind of explain different parts of the operating system for this year, and you can get a sense of who they are and what their focus is on. And I thought that was very helpful. Yes, thank you for that reminder, because there was a lot in that meeting, but the earlier part was Dr. Bedell's back to school review, back to school report, and a lot of it was delivered by Jessica Kutchers, who heads up HR, obviously the hiring process, where we are with vacancies,
Dr. Heiser, who's our chief operating officer, and Dr. Duarte, who is our chief academic officer. There are other folks, but I think it's fair to say, again, in my experience with looking at other school districts, I think the structure that's now in place of a cabinet is a much more typical structure for a system of this size, and I think will yield great results for decisions that are made. It helps us get out of silos, quite frankly. It means that you're in a better position to have a decision that really takes into account the whole picture. And so I think that is going to be of great benefit. And I will say, obviously, we know what the struggles in this county have been with transportation. We also know it's going on around the country. I think the fact that we are where we are right now is a testament to the work that Dr. Bedell and his team and the transportation department have done, especially when you stack it up against what's going on in a lot of other parts of the country. And so I have to say, I think it's impressive what they've done in a year. And fortunately, we do have a lot of folks in the pipeline, and that includes our van drivers. And as some of you may recall, Dr. Bedell, in my view, very smartly said, not only do these vans help us transport students so that you're not having a full school bus taken up with 3 students or something like that, but it also means you can hire drivers who are ready to go at the van level, and while they're working for us, get them on the CDL path and move them forward. And that's just a smart way to grow a bench. So, we're moving forward with that. Obviously, those of us in Annapolis know that we opened the new Hillsmere building, which is a beautiful, beautiful building. And that was one of 3 new buildings we opened this year. And all of them, I was at all the openings, 2 of them up in the Glen Burnie cluster, Rippling Woods and Quarterfield, and Hillsmere, and all of which have been a long time coming. So we're really grateful to have those buildings up and running, and hopefully, certainly our Hillsmere students should have a great year in their class. And I believe Hillsmere is fully staffed. And in fact, the Annapolis cluster has done a particularly good job of hiring. And so I think the last I heard, Annapolis High had maybe 1 vacancy, which for a school the size of Annapolis High is impressive in this environment. So
I had a question about Hillsmere. Do you know when the recess fields and things will be available to the students? That was my son's favorite component of Hillsmere.
Yes, I know it's coming. I don't know exactly when, and I'll make a note of that, and I'll see if I can get some information on that.
Okay. I did read about it, it was a $54 million project. And any other information you can get us on Hillsmere, and that is a good, whether the capacity is increased. India, I don't know if you know anything about, did they increase student state rated capacity when they redid the building?
What about Annapolis High? Did the capacity increase there?
No, there's been no building on Annapolis High this year. So there's been no change in the physical space to Annapolis High.
Okay.
What about enrollment?
I don't.
Yes, I'm gonna wait. India has an update for.
Okay.
So statistic-wise, it's not the projected capacity that is different. Given the old building had a capacity rate of 509, while the new building dropped to a capacity rate of 506 students. But it is the actual size of the building that will be the biggest difference. The old building had square footage of 45,855, while the new two-story building has 67,988 gross square footage.
Wow. Wow, that's impressive. Thank you so much. I
Yeah,
know
it's
some of us toured around the floors and stuff. We could just see that even like the PPW, the pupil personnel workers, had their own space for working with kids, their own dedicated classrooms and stuff. And those areas might not be captured in the rated capacity, but there was so much more room for those little collaborative spaces.
the health room is much bigger.
Yeah.
You know, so these are, I mean, the design is essentially the same. We modify it based on the building site, but you know, these are designed with more space per student, if you will, than the old designs. And Hillsmere, I think, is one of the few schools that we've ever built a new one actually for a slightly smaller capacity, even though it's only, as India said, 3 students. But it's based on the projections that we have. So, but yeah, the space is much better, and just reflects, quite frankly, the change in education since the old Hillsmere building was built. I mean, what students need to be exposed to, what we need to be able to offer, is just very different from what was the assumption back in 1960, whatever.
1964.
Yes, it's almost as old as I am.
Enid has a question. Enid, do you have a question? You have to turn on your microphone.
All the new building that's off of Forest Drive back in what's that road? Right before you get to Hillsmere on the right-hand side.
That's my old street, Annapolis Neck Road.
Annapolis Neck Road.
Mhm.
I'm assuming those kids are going to a different school because there are lots of building there.
That they are slated for Hillsmere Elementary. That road has always been Hillsmere Elementary when we lived on it and sent kids there. The question I'd like to follow up is the school system did a proportional, calculation of this many houses, we will get a certain ratio of students. And I would like, by the end of the year, as those houses are filling up, I would like to make sure we check those assumptions as all these plan developments go through, because people made assumptions about Annapolis. So, kids in Annapolis are going to private school, therefore you will have lower ratios, blah, blah, blah. So I definitely think we need to check the assumptions with real data.
Well, I mean, none of this is based on assumptions, right? It's based on projections. But the question is,
they made assumptions in the projections? They developed ratios.
Right.
And our ratios in Annapolis were different than the countywide ratios based on certain data sets.
Right. And so, the question, and as you say, we just have to see if that's holding. I mean, for example, there's a lot of apartment buildings going up in various places. The projections are that not many kids in some of these new apartment buildings are actually coming out of those apartment buildings into our schools because of the type of apartment building it is, right? It's many of those are geared towards kind of frankly pretty highly paid young professionals. Mm-hmm. So, right. they have various ways, and this is part of the adequate public facilities structure and so on, that they have ways of determining what sort of building is likely to yield a lot of school students. And but
as the market changes, market forces changes, and availability changes and other things, we'll want to re-examine those ratios and calculations and make sure we have Correct. I think Commissioner Packner and Laura Booth have questions for you. Jess? Turn the thing on.
All right, I thought Laura was going to go first. I was just going to say, Joanna, if it's just something that you could keep an eye on, because they do have those ratios and they do have those assumptions when it comes to apartment, but for our cluster, right? And so the ratios are the same, whether it's the James, which is a, you know, high end professional, young professional type of development, or it's Watergate, or it's Eagle Point, or any of the other apartment complexes, which clearly have a large number of children living in them and going to the public schools, right? So it's a problem that, you know, they're building these, and I mean, as Janet was saying, like they are making assumptions on people's personalities. And that's an assumption, because that's not a numerical thing. That's not something. They are guessing that since for a long time, people who could choose did not want to send their kids maybe to Annapolis schools, would then not choose to send their kids to Annapolis schools. And that's an assumption, and it's more and more a false assumption. But especially post-COVID and with the changing and, you know, everything else. But B, it's an assumption that starts us off on a bad foot anyway, right? If you assume that that's what's going to happen, and then you immediately overcrowd your schools, then yes, people are going to say, I'm not going to send my child to, you know, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy assumption, right? Like we're going to make it harder for people to want to attend Annapolis schools. And the last thing we should be doing is anything that makes it harder for people to want to attend Annapolis schools. And so that's a conversation, you know, we've been having for years, and, you know, both in the city and in the county. And it's unfortunate that it's treated differently here than it is in other parts of the school system and other parts of the county. And it's something that we really need to really advocate for our cluster about, because it does negatively affect us all in the long run.
Okay, I'm going to go to Laura. Thank you, Jess.
I just wanted to comment. We also talked about, like, when that building was built originally, we didn't have kindergarten. You know, or it was, you know, so we went to full day in the time that building went into play. We had full-time kindergarten added, which added, I think there were, you know, 4 or 5 kindergarten classes there. Now we have universal pre-K, but that was approved in between the approval of these plans. So already we're probably going to hit that capacity number immediately. Because of as soon as we start opening up for pre-K, if you know, you assume if you have 4 kindergarten classes, the teacher to student ratio is the same or lower, you know, fewer students per teacher at pre-K. So you have to have the same number of rooms for pre-K as for kindergarten, but probably you actually need more rooms for pre-K because they want smaller class sizes for pre-K. So my question is how quick, realistically, that building is probably going to be over capacity, like by the time the numbers come in September.
Yeah, we're going to have to see. And the truth is that we have been having this discussion with the state, because the ICC, that entity that is involved in construction, which I can never remember all the letters, that oversees state construction, we've gone back and forth where they won't let us. We have very tight years of growth in order to determine the size of a school. And so, you know, therefore that's led us at other times in this county to open a school with portables, right? By the time we open, it's already over capacity.
I think Davidsonville was one that hit that way.
Davidsonville, yeah.
And they had 4 trailers out back, like literally the year they opened.
Because obviously the state funds a good portion of our construction, and they hold they make these decisions.
Right.
So
I want to pass the question over to India. She and I were both at the ribbon cutting with you.
Going back to development, just as example, AACPS had to create a bus stop just for me at Annapolis Overlook. Wish I was the only one at during my last 2 years at Annapolis High. And look at how many kids are in the community now.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yes. I also wanted to add, we got to see that, but other people might not realize that there is a pre-K 3-year-old classroom at Hillsmere Elementary now. And I think we are one of 5 in the county.
I mean, we're expanding, know.
Yeah, currently that have the pre-K 3 program.
yeah,
So that, when you saw the itty bitty little chairs there, that was for the pre-K 3 at Hillsmere.
yes, who are
Dr. Tobin,
adorable.
they look too small. Could you just mention briefly about the bilingual program at Tyler Heights?
Yes, so that has begun. That is a neighborhood program right now, and it's starting with kindergarten and first, because they want to bring kids in and start moving them up through the system, and also they want to start small. Obviously, that was the point of this. Principal Walsh already had a number of bilingual folks on her staff, people who were prepared to teach in a bilingual setting. So that's our beginning this year, and we'll monitor, see how it goes, see what the demand is, and keep pushing it forward, and then hopefully be able to expand it out into other schools, not only in our cluster but around around the county, because I think it's
And-
likely to be popular.
As you clarified at the Board of Ed meeting, it's not a magnet program that you have to apply for. Anyone who's within the Tyler Heights district and is attending the school,
Mhm.
their children in kindergarten and first will get bilingual education by teachers who are going through the certification process, and some already have, for
Yep.
bilingual teaching.
That reminds me a couple of things to note. I think many of you know that the new principal at Annapolis High is bilingual.
Mhm.
And I think there's huge value in that. Our student member of the board is going to be starting up soon something a couple of SMOBs in other districts have done, which is the SMOB Minute, which is a sort of quick rundown once a month of what's happened at board meetings, decisions, and so forth. Now it's aimed at students. I think it'll probably be valuable for anybody. But he's working on doing that both in English and Spanish.
Oh, wow.
So, when we had the videos that came out a week or two before school, the 10 tips for back to school, we started that last year, where we have it in English and we have it in Spanish, and he's on both the English and the Spanish ones. And so he's worked I think he works in a couple of our summer programs as an instructor in
Wow.
second language stuff. He's a remarkable young man. So I think we can, that's just going to be a useful thing, as I said, not just for the students, I think for the population in general, to be able to quickly see a video that sort of updates you on some of the major decisions and discussions that the board had over the last month. So
Yeah, definitely. Laura, were you able to put in any of those pictures I took from the Board of Ed meeting?
Yes, and we will be discussing how to do proper screen captures later, but I did find that we put in actual screen captures.
We're all dang lucky that I did anything here. So that's my baseline of productivity, people. You're all here. I nagged you to get here.
you're all really lucky I didn't try to do it.
I watched the presentation and took my phone up to the screen. So I just wanted to highlight a few of the good things that the team and Dr. Bedell put in, and Dr. Tobin, if you want to throw in any words
Sure.
about this, but we did increase teacher starting salary. And so Laura, if you go to the next screen, where we went from 19th out of 24 jurisdictions in the state in starting teacher pay to 4th in the state in starting teacher pay. And this is all part of a big concerted effort by Dr. Bedell and the team. He's like hyped for a Super Bowl in competition versus MoCo, Montgomery County and Howard County.
And Howard, yeah.
So we
And
have to make sure that the metrics he's shooting for are applicable to our students. But he's full court press on what he wants to be chasing Howard and Montgomery County on our scores, our metrics, what we offer teachers.
Well, let me just remind everybody what's at stake here, right? I mean, obviously, we want our teachers paid in a way that they should be paid. And remember that we have not asked for more teacher positions over the last year or two because we had to first fill the ones we
vacancies
have.
Yeah.
And so I think the vacancy stuff came out today. We're at 151 or something for teachers. And if we can get to 0, then we're in a better position to come back this coming year and start asking for the additional positions we still need.
Mm-hmm.
But Dr. Bedell said last year, look, in good conscience, I've got to do one before the other, right? I've got to get the compensation for the teachers I have and the teachers the positions I already need to fill in place before I can go asking for more positions. But the fact is we probably need more. We know we need more teachers. So
I have a question for you. Do you know, I know that the board maybe allocated maybe 3 new social workers throughout the entire system. Do you know if Annapolis High got anything more?
I haven't heard yet. And frankly, to be perfectly honest with you, I've been chasing down a number of other things and I haven't chased that one down yet. So I'll check on that and see where we are. Because as I've said to you before, like you, I hear about it once it's happened because we are not allowed.
Right. It's an implementation under the superintendent.
Right. So, and it's just one of those questions. I heard, as I told you earlier, that Annapolis High had only 1 vacancy, but I don't know if that included an extra, if they'd received an extra position.
Laura, can you flip to a couple of the other slides there that just show the bus driver vacancies, the bus driver? So system-wide throughout the 85,000 student district, there were only 8 counselors and 2 school psychologists. Transportation, they are covering, if you can go to the transportation slide. Transporting 57,610 students this year, with a lot of miles up and down our peninsulas. And
God bless the peninsulas.
Yeah. And also when you watch the meeting, you'll hear a little bit more description of what's it called, Dr. Tobin? The Z-Pass?
Z-Pass, yep.
Z-Pass is the pilot program they're going to do all year long in the Crofton cluster about trying to record, first getting data on students entering the bus. How many students are actually entering the bus? And then
it's kind of a key card structure.
Yeah.
So that you know who's getting on, you know who's getting off. And frankly, if that works well, then it will help us also with the opt-in structure too, that we'll really have a solid understanding of who's, and it also, clearly it has security implications as well. If we can say for sure, yes, that child got on that bus, we have the record, you know, there are a whole host of reasons that we want this, right?
Yeah. And they did make the point of saying, you know, if the child is not carrying the Z-Pass that day, they will not be denied entrance to the bus.
Right.
We've all gone through our children, you know, barely able to get out the door and without or anything that they've forgotten to bring.
But it's those kinds of things that require us to pilot these things carefully so that we figure out where the pitfalls are before we bring in the entire system. And I think something else that came up in that meeting, Janet, just to reiterate, MSDE has identified ACPS as the fastest growing school system in Maryland over the next decade.
Wow.
So, I mean, again, to the points made earlier about building schools that actually will have capacity.
Mhm.
The other side of that is that's why we're doing the redistricting that we're doing, right? We need to make sure that the facilities we do have are being well used and are balanced
Mhm.
so that when we go to the state and say we need this new facility, we need this new facility, we have a better leg to stand on, that we really have done the work to balance the use of the facilities.
All right, Laura, I'm going to ask you to take that screen off. Dr. Tillman, I wanted to ask you one more question that was brought up in the Board of Ed meeting about our AACPS having a higher number of credits required to graduate than the MSDE state standard, and also than our competitors, friendly suburban districts, Howard County and Montgomery County. Now, I didn't know if part of that is a remnant of Howard County and Montgomery County at least Montgomery County does not include middle school classes on their high school transcript. And so I don't know if that's credit wise or if it's just on the transcript, if you could, and because a school counselor came to me, 5-6 years ago saying, can you please lobby for getting these middle school grades off high school transcripts? Something you take when you're in 7th grade is affecting your GPA when you graduate.
Yeah, I don't think the transcript, and I'm
Not a transcript issue, it's of like how the credits are counted.
yeah, whether whether your middle school courses are on your transcript is a different issue than what the hours are or the credits are that you're getting, right? In other words,
Well, it's a math and a language arts, so I didn't know if those were two of the credit requirements that ACPS has
foreign
more
language,
than others.
not language arts, Janet, foreign language.
Foreign
I
language.
language,
had to
yes,
sign
sorry.
one today.
Foreign language, yes.
yeah, I'll have to dig
Please.
into that and just make sure I got the right information. But here's what I will tell you. I think that's kind of a back end question. The fact is that we require, I can never remember if it's 24 or 26.
26, they said.
So that's right. We require 26. The minimum, I believe, is 22. Many of the other districts require 24 that we're talking about.
Yes.
So we're already requiring 2 more credits, right? And whether that's because we put middle school stuff on or not, the fact is that we have a higher requirement than the other counties that we're looking at. And so I think, I raised the issue initially because we were talking about the high school schedule, and we were talking about the fact that our high school students are required to take 8 courses a semester.
Mhm.
And there are quite a few more other districts than I thought do that. But I think we're seeing in our scheduling that it's a problem.
Mhm.
And I say, as a former college professor, there's no reason on the face of it to do that, right? There's nothing about 8 credits that's going to set you up better for whether it's college or any other path, a career path that you follow. And are we serving our students well? Are they really learning well what they are given, or are they just having to juggle so much that it becomes this kind of, war of attrition in a sense? So that was sort of the genesis of that question. And I think Dr. Bedell, as is his typical mode, he wants to see what the data does what the data do this year. I mean, we've obviously made the one change in the schedule, and that was part of the discussion at the board meeting that Dr. Duarte gave the presentation on what they'd seen in the data, why they're responding this way, and what comparable districts are doing, and that we already were giving more flex time and had lower instructional time than our counties around us. So I think there are a sort of whole host of questions that we have to look at with regard to the high school requirements and schedule, not the least of which because Blueprint for Maryland is really going to push us to change high school significantly. And frankly, to a structure a little bit more like what Ms. Pittman is proposing with the New Village Academy, where students come and go, have more hands-on experience, more opportunities for apprenticeships and so on. And so there's a lot of questions that come out of that, which I also raised at the board meeting about, you know, even right now, when students go to our CAT centers, there's a lot of issues about having them often almost repeat a course back at their home school because they're not getting the credit for the CAT course as a kind of science course, depending on the course or whatever. So, you know, there's just a lot of stuff we're going to have to look at, I think.
And I'm inviting all the commission members that this is kind of going to be one of the themes that we want to weigh in and tell our decision makers about this year. It's kind of a deconstructing high school and envisioning it better for our cluster students that this whole year. So, you know, Dr. Carr sees students coming from all 50 states all over the country, and they have different preparation backgrounds and sequences that they've taken their courses. And so I kind of want us all to weigh in on what you've seen, what might work better. I attended the Maryland Hall symposium with Dr. Bedell, where Lisa Bodvian was there, and we talked about why are we starting, and his goal of wanting more AP access for all students. And why are we starting with the hardest AP of US history and for ninth graders? You know, Severna Park doesn't do that. Other schools don't do that. Why is it appropriate for Annapolis High to do it? And is it appropriate? And Lisa Rodvian, who's taught social studies there at Annapolis High, was saying, why can't we make some more accessible steps in the social studies history things and get more students brought into the AP system,
right?
If they choose that and they want that. So I encourage all of us to provide input about, you know, what's worked for students that you know, or other jurisdictions that you know, and weigh in. For
and
just as a question,
just quickly, Jess, 1 second. Janet, I really appreciate that, because I would like to hear that from you folks. I mean, if people can email me with that, because these are things we are going to be doing a lot of work on. And it's really important to me to hear from people about what they've seen, what they think works, what they think doesn't work. And Dr. Carr, I always appreciate hearing from people who are who are getting some of our high school students and who sort of see the end result. You know, any thoughts that you have, or any of you have, I would appreciate.
So these were a couple questions that I came with tonight anyway, and this is, I guess, part of this whole conversation. And the first is going to go backwards a little bit. We were talking about staffing, but also talking about this. From what I understand, it's fantastic that AHI is as staffed as it is, but from what I understand, part of that is because some of our previous non-instructional personnel, like our IB coordinators, are now teaching in the classroom, and they were hired and with their expectation that they would not be teaching in the classroom. And it is not only, I mean, that's a whole teacher union thing, but we care about our teachers and we want our teachers to be happy. But also it's taking away from the IB program, because if an IB coordinator is having, I mean, that's a 12-month job
Oh,
for
yeah.
a year for a reason, and it's an intensive job. And I don't know, I did some research and I couldn't find any other school where the IB coordinators were also instructional, or
Right.
where they didn't have way more IB coordinators if they were going to be
Right.
instructional, because then they were instructional in the IB classroom. So, I think maybe we can say, yay, we're staffed almost fully, but not if it's then taking away from what's happening in the classroom. That IB program, I mean, I happen to be a mom of 2 IB kids, so I have my own personal, I am personally invested in this program, but just in general, it's a fantastic program, and it's a diploma program for the older, right? So it's not like we're just taking away from something that may or may not affect them. This is their, not having a coordinator who can be fully invested in what's going on, or requiring that coordinator to work way beyond, what then becomes almost, toxic. That isn't going to be the benefit of our students who are trying to get their IB diplomas and who are trying to, complete this program. That's a difficult program. So there's that first. And I think that's really important. I think it's something that if that's going to continue, we need to advocate for that not to continue, and how that change can be made. And then the other thing is, talking about the structure of high school and moving towards a structure where there's more coming and going, and there's more opportunity for, being involved in, what did you say? You said, like internships and other things.
Right.
At Annapolis High, we seem to be going the opposite direction, right? Because we've now taken away Panther Hour. So we have now taken away the opportunity for kids to be involved in clubs. Kids are now having to choose between clubs and sports, or clubs and work, or clubs and transportation, because as we discussed all of last year, there is no after school transportation from Annapolis High School. The 30 minutes that is offered 3 times a week does not allow for participation in more than one club, if even one club. If you're trying, and we all know, Dr. Carr especially can tell, but how important those clubs are for the kids who are on a college track and need those and want those extracurricular activities, but not only that, just for their own personal edification, how important those things are. And so now we have this program where we only have 30 minutes 3 times a week. And then the class that's the lunch class is being broken up. So the teachers are teaching for 45 minutes, and then their kids go to lunch, and maybe they come back or maybe they don't. And maybe they get to finish teaching that class or maybe they don't. I mean, there's so many concerns with the way that it is set up. I get it's only been 3 days, or really 2 days of the school year,
Right.
but it seems like we're going in the wrong direction in terms of creating an environment that's going to be most beneficial for our students.
Okay, thanks, Jess. I'm also going to refer people to, again, the Board of Ed meeting on the 23rd, because if you look at the public testimony, it was 99% from Annapolis cluster students and parents and involved teachers.
But that's because Annapolis High School had a choice and they chose this. And so that's the issue, right? It's a choice that Annapolis, so it's not a Board of Ed thing, because Board of Ed gave, or the administration, not Board of Ed, gave, and unless I'm wrong, the Board of Ed doesn't do day-to-day stuff. That's not a Board of Ed meeting discussion. We're here at the Education Commission advocating, and how can we get those, because that's a process, not a policy.
But I'm saying one of the students who was a Apex Arts student got up and said, because of our transportation to Studio 39, we now have 0 opportunities to go to clubs at all. And I know when my kids applied to academies and stuff, you essentially had to be in the National Honor Society to be considered for an academy. And other schools, the clubs are so important for so many reasons. I also think for Romy, you've brought this up on how student groups don't really mix at the high school, and the clubs were one of the few places that they did. you'd mix on the sports teams and you would mix within club opportunities. So so the fact that Cat South and PVA students do not get to participate in any clubs is really something very difficult to accept. And we're going to be,
Well, let me say and reiterate what Janet said, which is if any of you haven't, please watch the August 23rd board meeting, because this is laid out in great detail. And I think what the superintendent was trying to do here is to balance things out. We have been hearing from teachers for a very long time that they feel they need more instructional time. And our instructional time was below most of the counties around us, and our data is not where it should be. And as a board, I think we felt we would be negligent if we looked at that data and did nothing.
Mhm.
Now, the question is, what's it going to, are we actually going to see the improvements that Dr. Duarte and Dr. Bedell believe will come from this? And that is what we will be monitoring. But what you raised, Jess, and what Janet raises is exactly why I brought up the 8-course issue. Because I said there in that meeting, I believe the flex thing, we're tinkering around the edges. There are some systemic issues with our high school schedule structure that need to be addressed, and they're deeper than this. And we can play the game with the flex stuff all we want, and we still won't have gotten to the problem. And so that's why I raised that in that discussion. But I agree with you. I mean, I know the need. I also know what the data are showing us, and we've got to find a way to navigate through these things. So
that's going to be one of our big missions this Annapolis education session. And I want the elementary parents, Jamie and others, to know that we're not forgetting our elementary schools. What I'd also like to see, the issue of clubs at the high school level is the same as access to clubs at the elementary school level. I mean, when I was an elementary parent, I remember that, Severna Park and other places had access to the stock market club and Destination Imagination and other things that our kids did not have. And I want to make sure that all these enrichment clubs that can turn a kid on to a certain subject are available to our cluster as well as others.
Janet, before I go, can I put in one plug for something
Yes.
I just heard about today, which is
Yes.
actually a city thing?
Ooh.
On Friday, September 8th at the Pip Moyer Center, there's going to be a teen night celebration, and the city, Rex and Parks, is doing it. I'm sure some of you have gotten this. I'm going to try to put it out on some of my social media and so on, but I just wanted to make sure that the folks on the commission knew about it and could
Great,
put the
great
word out.
plug. Yes, I think I just approved it going on the Annapolis High Community Facebook page a few minutes before our meeting. So one of our great community members put it up there if people want to see that, and we'll distribute that. And I love it when the city is getting involved in doing that for our teen students.
They are trying to do more after school stuff, as frankly, as I've been at a couple of the listening sessions on the violence issues, and that is something the city is working on. So I'm glad to see it.
Great. And I'll just put in a plug for, hey, city, please let us know what you're doing, because we're your education commission and we would love to be brought up to speed, involved, and be able to disseminate it more. Great. Thank you, Dr. Tobin. That's been very helpful. And we appreciate
you all.
your efforts to start the school year so well.
Well, you know where to find me. So if you have other questions or other things you want to share, but I'll probably see you next month.
We
So
will. That's great. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
have a good night.
At this time, so Romy and Darius, I had held off the roll call of our commissioners because I wanted you to be here when we introduced ourselves, just so you know who everybody is and that we can hear your perspectives as we listen to your presentation and do a little give and take. So I'm going to go through my agenda of roll call for our commissioners. So I'm going to go ward by ward, 1st through 8th, and then I'm going to go the at-large commissioners. So just be ready to unmute yourself when I call your ward. Tell us your name and a little bit about your background in the educational realm and how you're involved. So I'm going to start with Ward 1.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Rachel Carr. I'm on the faculty at the Naval Academy. So most of my education experience is in higher ed.
Mhm. But you've also done some GED tutoring. Is that correct?
Yes, but really, I'm learning a great deal from all of you about
Okay.
the rest of this world.
Okay, great. Ward 2.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Weaver. I am a former educator in Anne Arundel County as in the infants and toddlers program. I'm a special education. I also have 3 students at Germantown Elementary.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. Ward 3. Enid.
Hi, I'm Enid Collison-Lee, a retired school teacher from this county, as well as having 2 children who graduated from Annapolis High School in the feeder system.
Great. Thank you. Ward 4, we have a vacancy. And our Alderwoman Sheila Finlayson is not here tonight with us. So I'm going to move to Ward 5.
India Oaks, Ward 5, alumni of the Annapolis cluster, former PTA president and parent of an 8th grader at Bates, and I also taught high school law in upstate New York.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Thank you, India. Ward 6. Corey. Is Corey with us? Corey was here earlier. She might have had to pop off. Ward 7.
Laura Booth, Ward 7. I am the parent of a 2021 Annapolis High grad, and I am the president of the PTA at Bates, where I have an 8th grader.
And Laura was vice president of the Annapolis High PTA.
No, I was the treasurer.
You were the treasurer.
Really the job I like best.
Laura ran the entire Annapolis High PTA with me as the figurehead. All right. So Ward 8.
Corey's here. She was just trying to talk. So I'm going to let Corey go and then I'll do me.
Okay. I didn't see her on the screen.
Oh, sorry, y'all. I don't know what was wrong with my phone. It had froze.
That's okay.
But
Corey,
yes,
Ward 6.
my name is Corey Mackle. I'm representative of Ward 6. I have 2 teenagers in the Annapolis cluster, 1 9th grader and 1 junior this year.
9th and 11th. Great. All right. Ward 8.
I'm Jess Packler. I'm Corey's neighbor. And we both have, I also have a 9th grader and 11th grader at Annapolis High, as well as a 6th grader at Annapolis Middle and a 4th grader at Eastport Elementary, and have been involved in all the various PTAs and PTSAs and various things over the years, and love our schools and our cluster.
And you're still currently Annapolis Middle School PTA?
PTA, yes.
PTA president, and involved with Eastport Elementary PTA.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, Odessa Lilly.
Odessa Ellis, retired permanent substitute teacher from Annapolis High. I have 4 children, adult children. 3 graduated from Annapolis High.
Great, thank you, Odessa. Grace Matthews.
Grace Matthews, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, Grace Matthews, former educator, 47 years as an educator.
All right,
I
thank you.
taught in this county, and I ended up being the guidance counselor for Meade High School.
They're still lacking some guidance counselor positions. If you want to get back in the game, Grace.
I don't think the students want to encounter Miss Matthews. No, you know, I'm tough love, so I don't think they
She's
want
old
me.
school tough love. Yeah.
Oh yeah, old school.
All right, thank you. And I'm an at-large representative, Janet Norman. I'm the chair of the commission. I have two Annapolis High IB grads, 2018 and 2021, and was Annapolis High PTA president, and Mike Hillsmere Elementary Science Chair and robotics founder and all that fun stuff we do in elementary. So I just wanted to give you and Romy and Darius a background of where everybody's coming from, what our experiences and perspectives have led us. And when we ask questions, you know, where we stand. So I'm going to turn it over to you with the, and also have people again, watch that August 23rd Board of Ed meeting where the new Village Academy was approved by the Board of Education. So I'll let Romy and Darius explain more.
So we reached out to Jan to reconnect with you all because we'd had sort of a short meeting before where I think that was the flag issue had come up, and so I kind of got to throw a bunch of slides at you really fast, and then there was no opportunity for questions. So I'm not sure what makes sense here in terms of the best way to structure it. I could kind of run through what the school model is for people. Again, I think most people are kind of at least have a sense of what we're up to. So maybe it makes more sense to just do an update on where we are, and then people have questions about the instructional model or the details of the you know, governance and the, you know, what we're doing in terms of all the infrastructure and stuff. You can just fire those at us and we'll talk.
Great.
Thanks.
And if you need to share screen or anything like that, otherwise we'll just hear what you have to say. I did distribute the frequently asked questions and your new prospectus to all of our commission members that they can check later. I sent that out late this afternoon.
There'll be a quiz on the 20-page perspective. Sorry about that.
No, those were good. Those were good FAQs.
Yeah. But yeah, the FAQs were not quite as long as the prospectus, but also pretty long. Darius, do you want to start off with an update on where things are and what's been going on in the last few weeks, and then I can kind of jump in and add things, or how do you want to do it? You look far away from the screen. Are you in a place where you can talk?
His speaker is muted.
I just happen to have multiple screens, unfortunately, and so that was my delay in being able to switch over. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Jan and the Board of Commissioners, for having us join you this evening. Thank you for the work that you all have done over since I guess, I don't know how long it's been since Alderwoman Finlayson formed this body, but I've been in front of this body of
11,
how long?
well, maybe 2010 or 11. Some of us have been involved since then. Yep.
Awesome. But I am just, we're really grateful for the opportunity. And again, thank you for the work that you all are doing. Some I know intimately, and some I have just met for the very first time, but we're excited to be here, and thanks for the work that you're doing. So we're really excited about this opportunity. Just a little bit about myself. I'm an Annapolis graduate from Annapolis Senior High School, as well as Bates, attended Bates Junior High. So I'm a proud Cougar. And Germantown used to be the Fireflies. You all probably don't know that. I don't know if anybody on here went to Germantown. I know there's some parole folks in the building, but But I went to Germantown and we were Fireflies, but I understand that we're no longer Fireflies at Germantown.
The Eagles.
Maybe they'll make
Eagles.
We're the Eagles now.
Okay, well, Eagles are special too. So, but yeah, so I'm very fortunate to have been able to come through this system. And I think it kind of parallels with one of the reasons why we're involved. I was also the drug czar at the city of Annapolis, and at the time I was very involved with one of the many redistricting opportunities that came about at the school board as a representative of the mayor's office at that time. And I learned a great deal about just Annapolis and why things are the way that they are. And I'll never forget being in a meeting, and I was probably, much younger than I am now, probably about 21, 22 years old. And I was struck by the fact that this room was filled with primarily, at the time, white women. And there may have been two other black males in the room. Bottom line was, there was this huge conversation about where they wanted to place different communities. And what it ended up being, when I left the meeting, I couldn't help but feel like it was a bias. It was a real, almost like where they just, the parents were really concerned about their children going to school with people who were coming from communities like Robinwood and Newtown and other public housing or subsidized housing communities. And I'm going to fast forward to becoming a parent myself. And our oldest son went to Parole Elementary. And I remember going to school and going to the field trips. And fortunately, I ran Boys and Girls Clubs for about 18 years here in the city of Annapolis, Anne Arundel County, Montgomery County, Prince George's, the District of Columbia. And then I stopped my Boys and Girls Clubs career in Baltimore City and opened a number of clubs inside of high school. So I got an elementary school. So just firsthand in terms of being tied to educational systems. But we decided to move our son and our children from Parole. And the reason being is because, all children, my son in particular, he was very rambunctious. He did his work and got that done. But after that, he was into it all. But to wrap it up, we ended up going to a few PTA meetings, and I was just struck by the fact that, I'm the only one going to the field trips. It was only maybe 6 or 7 people at the PTA meeting, and we had to make a decision. And the decision that we made was to move to a school and a community where our children really could get the kind of support that we felt was necessary for them to thrive. And it really broke our hearts because my wife went to Parole, I went to Germantown, and we loved the environment and what we got out of the educational system that we were a part of, but we didn't feel like we could really place our children at peril. And the reason why is because primarily, not because of the teachers, but it was the lack of support that the other students had. And it was impacting their ability to be educated, which in fact was going to impact ours. So I brought the story up about the Board of Education redistricting because here I was now a parent myself, and it slapped me like a ton of bricks because I understood the concern. It wasn't that the parents, and maybe some had been, had an inkling of or challenge with race, but it was just a concern about their children being able to get the best education as a result of everybody being supported. And so fast forward to now, 2 years ago, after the stabbings that took place at Annapolis High School, and I got a number of phone calls about what can we do, how can we address it. Joanna Tobin, Gloria Dent, and a number of other leaders in the community, Miss Odessa, whom I wouldn't even be here if it were not for Miss Odessa's mom. She brought my grandmother to Annapolis when I was 16 years old. And when she was 16. And so as a result of that, I saw firsthand the state that our children are in. At Annapolis High, I went to Old Mill, saw the same thing. And I realized that we have to do something. And I got introduced to Romy. And as a result of that, I learned about the power of what we intend to do, which is motivation. And it just became a real solution to what I saw as a significant challenge for the young people who were either completely disengaged and were only coming to high school because they wanted to feel safe, they wanted to socialize, and or they just did not feel like they could cut the mustard in the classroom because they were really unable to read and comprehend. And therefore, to escape the embarrassment, they stayed in the hallways. And so along comes New Village Academy. And so New Village Academy is really a focus on being able to bring our young people into an environment with a culture that is focused on supporting them and giving them the kinds of engagement with teachers, with community ambassadors, with internships and other opportunities. And so as a result of that, we've been able to do a little bit in a short period of time. We were very fortunate to acquire funding prior to us being able to secure the charter last week from the New School Venture Fund, which is a national charter school funding organization that is very reputable, and it's opened up a number of other doors, not only funding opportunities, but also training and other resources that Romy has been able to take advantage of and be in the room with just some brilliant educators from around the country. She and I went to Oakland and really got a bird's eye view of a lot of other innovative techniques, but just being able to really pull in resources and that are going to help us tremendously. In addition to that, we've made several strides with the Annapolis Mall, Westfield, in working on closing the deal to be able to start construction there. We've got a number of partners that have come to the table to assist us to really create an environment where we'll be able to stomach the financial burden of the school, the building and construction in the mall. And of course, being able to get the support of the school board and a 7-0 vote, as well as the superintendent's recommendation, has been a significant opportunity for us to move all of the folks that are advisors of our board. We have an advisory board that we're still looking to continue to have people join us and help us to bring the resources to bear that we're going to need to implement and execute the strategy that we have, the modality in terms of motivating and educating our young people in a different fashion for what they're doing every day and currently. And also we have 16 members of a 21-member board, and we're still looking for 5 additional seats. 2 of those seats are going to be parents, and we already have a student board, but we have a member on our board that is a student, and they were have been very involved from the very beginning in helping develop the name, our marketing materials, our programming, you name it. They've been at every presentation, almost every presentation that we've made to various groups. Our young people have been at the table and with a big voice. So we've been able to do, we just also secured our 501c3. And so that is a significant, we're not, a big corporation that's running a lot of charter schools or have that intention. Our intention is to create a model that that will provide some additional resources to the system that we're a part of, which is Anne Arundel County Public Schools, in terms of how they are educating the mass of the system, as well as where the opportunity presents itself to be able to move into a few other parts of the county to support those areas. But rather than just create islands of New Village Academy, as Dr. Bedell talked about, we really want to be able to shift the mindset and the way that we educate our young people, because something has to change from the century-old way that we've been educating, as I'm sure most of you all would agree. And last, I'll close by just saying that the other big deal is the fact that we have Romy Pittman as our school's principal, future principal, because she's cut her teeth, started in Prince George's County at Suitland High School, went on to Baltimore City and started, additional schools there, worked nationally, opening up charter schools and other innovative educational opportunities for young people. And then came back to Annapolis High and taught in her own county and learned this significant challenges that our young people are faced with. And she started to go to work. And she's a hard worker. She's a smart worker. She's passionate, and she's very, very, very bright. And so we're really excited about her being the leader of the school. And we're really looking forward to partnering with you all, as well as we'll be, going into the community for design suggestions and recommendations, as well as programming and the big recruitment push that is going to take for us to be able to get the students that we really need, that really will benefit from being a part of New Village Academy. So, Romy.
Thank you, Darius. That was really sweet. Very lovely. And thank you all too for letting us come and speak and for the work that you're doing. And I think it's worth saying up front that I'm not a charter school advocate or even fan of it on a policy level. But I think, what Joanna Tobin said at the board meeting, I really feel is true, which is that there was the intention behind charter school policy when they originally did it was that it would find different ways to serve students who were not being served well, and that it would become an incubator for innovation. And I think my hope is that we will really fulfill that promise, and that we will not be the kind of charter school that has sometimes popped up in Anne Arundel County and sometimes in other places where it's, essentially a way for families to get a free private school. It's, that model, this sort of cream of the crop thing. So I just wanted to, name that. And then I just want to add a couple of details to what Darius said about in terms of an update. One of the things that he didn't talk about was at the mall, one of the things that we're looking at. So we have a space, it's the second floor of the Lord and Taylor. So it's about 52,000 square feet, and we only really need about 30,000 of that because we want to stay a small school because of our model, not because of, budget wise, it would be nice to have more students, but that's what we think will work best for the students that are with us. So we're looking to partner with Total Healthcare, which is a federally qualified healthcare organization that's been mostly up in Baltimore, and then they just built a site in Odenton, and I think they have one in Brooklyn Park or Glen Burnie. And anyway, they serve underinsured and undocumented people, and they have pretty robust mental health programming as well. And they're talking about bringing into their space also a dentist and an eye care, person. So we're really excited about that possibility. It's not finalized yet. We're still in negotiation with them about how that all can work. It's pretty complicated layers of leasing and subleasing and stuff. So it's not a done deal, but they're really excited and we're really excited. And I think it would be a really great thing for the community. And then another piece is that we are, at the same time that we're getting the lease negotiated and figuring out who's going to share that space with us and all of those things, we're also starting a design process. And the first stage in that design process is getting input from the community, obviously from our board and our youth advisory board, which is sort of a ready-made representatives of the community, both at the kid level and at the adult level. But then we also really want to, at the same time that we want people to know about the school and know that we exist and get families to just hear about us, number one. We also are really excited about getting people's input on both the building design, and then there are also still pieces of the model that we haven't finalized yet that we think should be community informed. So one of them is our portrait of a graduate. So we have this competency-based learning model where students are, instead of earning credits by just sitting in a class and turning in a few pieces of work, they have to demonstrate in a portfolio that they are proficient in an array of competencies or skills. And those get informed by what do we want the person who graduates from New Village Academy to be, right? That's how they get determined. And then we build out rubrics from those. And so we really want to get input on that, on that, like if I'm going to send my child to New Village Academy, what do I want them to be and when they leave? And then also even specific things, like we're also setting up a badging system for smaller skills, everything from like, how do you write an email where people will, see you as a professional? How do you, when do you pull out your phone at work? How do you change a tire? How do you balance, balancing your checkbook's not a thing anymore, but those sort of practical skills. And so that's another piece of what we want to sort of collect as we're going around and sharing more about the school, to also have it be a two-way exchange. And Ratasha Harley, who's on this call, and Tony Pratt met with us a couple of days ago, and we're really, appropriately pushing us and saying, hey, there are places that you have not talked to people yet. And that's absolutely true. And frankly, being a full-time teacher, and I was like, I'm not the kind of teacher who does it for 8 hours and then leaves it alone. But I was, last year working 12 hours a day as a teacher, and then writing this 870-page application and really focusing on student input. And I know that we haven't done enough work yet in the Annapolis community to get the word out and to get input. And so I totally appreciate that push, and I know that that's really an important next step for us. So
if I could, there were two other things I just want to make mention of, and in the conversation. One is the fact that it's really going to be important for us to be able to have deep relationships with community organizations that have a connection to our parents. You can build a Taj Mahal, whether it's a Boys and Girls Clubs, whether it's a New Village Academy, a new Annapolis High, or any elementary school. But if we do not have a direct relationship with the parents in our school, and the ability to impact the family overall, not with us taking the lead on that, but through our partnerships and having a much more engaging relationship with parents. If you look at the data from results from Head Start, and you see how Head Start families do much better in terms of employment opportunities, in terms of educational advancement in the Latinx and the African-American communities, it just gives you, an inkling of what can be if we're able to do the same type of thing at the high school level. And so Tony Pratt Strong talked to us a great deal about making sure that happened. And I see that Ms. Odessa dropped off, but Ms. Odessa has been really at the forefront, pushing me, a number of others in our community, in particularly African-American males, to make sure that we do something to address and work towards educating and providing a better opportunity for our young men. And so I wanted to just acknowledge that, because it really is a big part of what we plan on doing and partnering to do. Excuse me, I apologize for cutting you off.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I just wanted to say that we would love your input on how to make those connections. And if there, I'm guessing, I don't know this, but I'm guessing that you guys might already have sort of regular check-ins with the wards that you serve, or, virtual meetings or whatever. And if there are opportunities for us to,
We don't. We don't have scheduled meetings like that. We encourage our ward members to try and go out and do things within their ward and kind of report back on the schools that they interact with. but we don't have any currently scheduled events. We do
On the phone.
we do have a question from Commissioner Laura.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because you are a beginning enrollment, are you accepting enrollment for 9th, 10th, 11th? I mean, I don't know if you do a typical grade study, but you're accepting all 4 years from the get-go, or are
We
just
are.
like
And
9th?
that's the youth advisory board thing, because at first I was thinking, oh yeah, we'll start with 9th and 10th and grow it up.
Right.
And they kind of rebelled against that idea because they're like, no, I'm in 9th grade or 10th grade now. I want to be able to go to this school. And I realized that also is a really powerful thing, right? Because they will be protective of the school's culture, and they're more mature and they're much more ready to start doing the career focused work or college focused work. And so they'll be great role models, and I think help with bringing younger students in. So
That's awesome. I was also wondering because, Jess and I are both at middle school PTAs. And I know like this is the time of year, I know the magnet programs, I think the applications open up in October for magnet programs for high school. I'm assuming you're going to be in that same time frame and the same. Okay. So this is a good time to be talking to 8th graders. So like, I know we're going to have magnet nights at the middle schools. I don't know if there's a way that we can bring you in as well, or have you reaching out and talking to our 8th graders. But I'm sure there are 8th graders in our within the Bates and AMS communities that would be ideal candidates that would be like, you know what, I'm not excited about going to Annapolis High. This isn't working for me as it is. I want something different. So I'm trying to figure out how we can get you to interface directly with our 8th graders as they're making those magnet selections this fall.
Yeah,
So like
and
in the next month.
Advisory board interfacing with them would be especially great. They've talked about wanting to go to the middle schools and talk. So if that can happen, that would be fantastic.
That would be
I'd love to throw out I don't know if it's possible, but yeah, X not, you get not. But I did a great deal of speaking at high school, elementary, middles, but it's where I really first learned how powerful and how special teachers are. Because I would go into classrooms like the entire science block or the English block or the history block, whatever the subject was, and I'd be there all day, right? And talking to every class that came through. So what I'm wondering is for the 8th graders, if we could get into maybe one of the advisories or something like that. And as they come in, we stay there for, A day, B day, whatever it takes. But to be able to do a 20-minute presentation or such to those students in those blocks. I'm just throwing out as an idea. We can follow up on it, but it would be great for, the students that we could bring from Annapolis, as well as, ourselves, a part of our team, and give them the rah-rah so they can understand the energy and the passion and what it is we're looking to do, as well as get any ideas that they may have as well.
Laura, I think that's an excellent idea. And we as a commission could ask the new leadership at the superintendent's office to make those, can we have you join the magnet night? Can we have you come in for advisories? And if we as a commission make that request, as well as you guys making the request, since you are approved.
And one of the nice things is that honestly, they're overcrowded at A High. They don't want every student to go there.
They need ways to decrease that hallway flux flow.
Right.
I have a question regarding how, one, are your teachers going to be AACPS union teachers like Monarch Contract School is?
Yeah.
Okay. And also, please don't poach all the good teachers from Annapolis High. Just asking. And
the good thing is that
bring some in from Montgomery County,
for sure, and from colleges and universities, especially. We have a board member who is affiliated with Bowie State and does a lot of the teacher training work there.
Okay, great.
We're really trying to, honestly, the way charter school funding works is we get a fixed per pupil amount, and whatever that teacher costs, we have to pay that. So like I would not be able to afford to hire myself as a teacher because I have so many years in and 2 master's degrees, and so I would be priced out of being able to work at the school. So we're going to be looking for young folks.
Great. And you also, are you constrained by the MSDE requirements that they have to pass, you know, Government 10 and English this and Algebra 2?
Yeah, I mean,
high
that's a
school?
moving target, you know, so we don't really know what those requirements are because they've changed them every year for the last several years. And they were, you know, for a long time, they were doing this sort of bridge project thing if somebody didn't pass. And then they said, oh, the whole thing doesn't
Right.
count. And then, so it's been hard to figure out what are we being held accountable to? But yes, whatever that requirement is, we will have it too.
Okay, so you will have to meet whatever state requirements and state modifications for passing those
Yeah.
courses. Each
Yeah.
student has to. Okay.
Can I go back to something a little bit earlier? Because I had this idea that, you know, I was fascinated that you all were going to focus this year on sort of rethinking what high school can be. And it made me wonder, it would be so cool to have students input in that process as well. And I wonder if there's a way that instead of it being about New Village Academy, if we went into middle schools, what if it was a sort of, you know, here are people who are doing interesting things with alternative ways of doing high school, or, you know, sort of a more general exploration that where we're really soliciting student feedback about what would you want to see in a high school and having that conversation. So just throwing that out there before we move too far away from it.
No, that is a great idea. And I would like our commission members, if anybody is willing to step up and do some research and say, okay, you know, what's Montgomery County doing? What's California doing? You know, what are schools around the country or Wisconsin, some of the leaders in education, you know, what are they requiring? I know we all have personal friends in other places that, like, their middle schools have amazing after school programs and, you know, cooking and just really enriched elementary and middle school experiences and high school experiences that we want to see replicated here. That I think now is really the time to break away from the old thinking that pervaded, this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
So if we could get commission members that would be interested in doing a little bit of legwork research to see what is state requirements and what is, you know, my Wisconsin friend had forge and ironworking as one of the courses in high school. Jess, you had a question?
Yeah, so sort of along that line, or those lines, one of the questions that I had is, as a charter school, is there an option for your students or for the students to participate in sports and other extracurricular activities at Annapolis High School? Because I feel like that's something that a lot of other school systems do, even for homeschooling kids, right? You can be a homeschooler and still be in the marching band, and, you know, and that's something that really then opens it up, because otherwise, if you have someone who's a soccer player and then you're making them choose between an educational experience or their ability to play soccer, which will take them to wherever they want to go for that, you know, whatever it is, football, etc. You don't want to limit opportunities. I feel like a lot of times I only really have experience other than my own personal educational experience here in Anne Arundel counties, but a lot of times it seems like we limit opportunity by rulemaking, where, you know, and it sometimes seems like silly, you know, like we have huge absentee issues because we have these, you know, bus routes that kids are forced to walk in bad weather, long, anyway, whatever. I just feel like, you know,
I'll let Rami respond.
Yeah, so we were told no. I was hoping that would be possible. I know that it is in other places. And I don't know whether there's wiggle room on that, or whether that could be something that we lobby for, or if that's just a legal issue that has come down that they're not going to move on. But yeah, I would love to see that. I think it would be fantastic if students could, after school, go over to High and hop, they can hop on the bus, because there's that bus that goes right from the mall to down there, and they could be on the teams.
Yeah, it would
Because
be great.
we
And one of
already
the other
feel
things, one of the other things when we're just talking about sort of the visions and the different things, one of the things that we've talked a lot about in our commission is how you have a lot of kids who are leaving fifth grade, not ready for sixth grade, right? They have to leave fifth grade. They're not really ready for sixth grade. You have a lot of kids leaving eighth grade that aren't ready for ninth grade. And one of the conversations we had a lot of times over the past couple of years was about the idea of a school to reach that gap, to basically be an extra year, a gap year, but a gap year at sixth grade and a gap year at eight, or a gap year after fifth grade and a gap year after eighth grade. And, just putting that out there, because I feel like, especially if you're doing this innovative way. And if we have kids, clearly we can identify the children who are not quite ready to go into high school, but they have to go into high school anyway. And then they get into high school, and that's where you really fall behind, right? Because then you're just on this pathway to, and so anyway, just keeping that in mind as well, because that's something I think, particularly when we talk all the time about the achievement gap and the different ways of solving different items. And that's, one, just something to give those kids an extra year, just like kids do before they go to college, right? Like, and so just.
Okay.
Yeah, again, I love that idea. And we proposed that, that when students are coming in multiple years behind grade level, that we be allowed to have a conversation with the family and say, this is, we are going to get you to where you need to go. It might take an extra year. And with our competency-based model, that's fine. It's not a problem for us, but apparently it's a problem for Anne Arundel County because they are evaluated based on 4-year graduation rates. And so if it takes 5 years, and then it makes them look bad. So, yeah.
I have a question whether you have approached.
If I could just go back to Ms. Pastor's question about the sports. So one of the things that we are working to do in lieu of, if in fact we're not able to connect them initially to Annapolis High School's after school extracurricular activities, is to create our own intramural program so that we still have a solid, organized sports component that will be offered to our young people. And Romy and I have been out in the community quite a bit, as well as other members of our board and advisory board. And one of the partnerships that we're striking up is with the City of Annapolis Recreation and Parks. So they gave us an inkling that they'd be definitely willing to support that effort. And so that would be something that we would be working with in lieu of. But I played basketball at Annapolis High, as did my uncle and my father. And so it was a big deal for me. I actually came back to Annapolis, from going to school in Baltimore for a period of time and being homeschooled, just to go back to Annapolis High School and play basketball. So it is a big deal for a lot of students. And the middle school program, I know that there's an effort underfoot that you all might, if you don't know about, we definitely want to get you connected. But Councilmember Pete Smith is really looking at working to create a program for middle school to bring sports back. And you all know how needed it is, but it definitely is an opportunity. So that's what we're going to be looking at in lieu of being able to make that direct connection. Thank you, Jan.
That's a great point, and it directly ties to the question I have. Has the city offered you the use of the Pitt Moyer facility for like PE classes and the weight room and other things? I know that my son got through Annapolis High only by taking 2.5 years of weightlifting class. 2.5 solid years of weightlifting. Got his frustrations out, and he's not punching the drywall and things. So what kinds of, where can you get those facilities? And I know Annapolis High just like expanded their weightlifting room and new equipment, and how can you tap into what the city has or what AHS has to benefit your students?
Yeah. Well, I think the city's really open to it. We were talking at Pitt Moyer the other day to the director, and she seemed really interested in having us, provided that it doesn't impact their other programming, right? They're not going to turn the world upside down for us, but she's very open.
They're
to
not, Jimmy, they're not going to turn the world upside down for New Village. I cannot believe that. Sure they are.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that we will have a kind of a multi-purpose fitness room or whatever that will include, have weights, yoga, martial arts. We have Dr. Paul Dyer on our board, who is a grandmaster martial arts trainer. He's amazing.
Great.
And so we will
donate a pickleball net and you can indoor
pickleball court, right? There's the new ones that opened up right by the mall. Yeah.
Yes.
And then the other thing that's kind of interesting is they have said that we can use the third floor parking area on the other side of our space. They can't, they have zoning restrictions about how many parking spaces they have to have, so it can't become something else permanently. But they've absolutely said we can put up basketball courts, we can put up basketball hoops and volleyball.
Oh, good. Okay, that's great.
We'll find ways, but it probably won't be that we can sustain, interscholastic competitive sports. So.
Okay. I'm gonna wrap the conversation now, but what I'd like to ask is that, so my initial hesitancy, I was never opposed to your ideas of doing that. My concern was, that sounds great. What do we do with the other 2,000 students that remain at Annapolis High? So, we would love to get your ideas and your feedback about how we can also help the students who remain at Annapolis High have a more innovative or successful path through that. So if you can keep the conversation flowing.
Yeah, I mean, this is my whole career has been thinking about this. So I got a lot of thoughts if you want them.
Great. And I'm really good at nagging people with emails.
Yeah.
So,
can I just raise one other issue super quick?
Yeah.
So Pat Crane has, I don't know, if you watch the board meeting, you know that one of the ways that we can make this more of an Annapolis school is that we can reserve, it's tricky, it's like reserving 35% of the lottery. So if we have a full lottery or over capacity, 35% of those spaces can be reserved for a geographic area, as long as the geographic area has a lower median income than the whole school district. So I've spent a lot of time poking around in that, and it's all way more complicated than I thought, because if you go with basic things like zip code, the two zip codes in Anne Arundel, in Annapolis, are very mixed income, and like my goal is to make sure that students who are falling through the cracks at A High have a different place to go if they want it, right? And so that's and most of those kids are not living in the mansions along the water, So I'm trying to figure out ways to structure the geographic area that we're serving so that it is also targeting communities that are.
Have you used census boundaries? Because the census boundaries pretty clearly define. I was using them a lot when I was trying to point out that the Annapolis goal was only servicing the wealthier areas of town, and but the census maps are pretty specific as to. The other thing would be choosing our Title I schools, right?
Yes,
so
I
suggested about like the Title I elementary schools, if you're in
which is 3/4 of the schools in Annapolis. So, the zip codes, because the problem with the zip codes is they incorporate a lot more than the city, right? They incorporate the whole county. But I wonder if you looked at just the zip codes within the city, but anyway, I'd be happy to talk to you about that.
Prior attendance at one of the Title I elementaries or middle schools.
Yeah, if the home elementary school for that address would be a Title I school, then that would be a good indicator of, hey, this is a kid who probably.
And it's one that wouldn't require the extra step of figuring out which census district they're in. So, it would probably be easier for the school system, because we won't get to do that. They'll do it.
Yeah, because if you're going through the school magnet, the general school magnet program application, they should have all that information anyway. So there isn't really an extra step then.
And
Yeah.
Annapolis Middle is Title I as well. So that would incorporate the entire all of the schools that fall under the Annapolis Middle
And
District.
it would also take care of the gap where like Robinwood feeds into Hillsmere, which is
Right.
not Title I, but kids from Robinwood would obviously be, good candidates or, may
But,
be
and, yeah.
need that
So
kind of yeah, exactly. So that would be.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm just in terms of our commissioners' time, I'm going to have to wrap conversation now, but it's been very fruitful. And we, we definitely want to keep in touch with you by email and in person, and shoot us little bullet points of what we can do for you or research needs or anything else. And we all have the common goal of getting our kids more successfully through a high school experience.
Yeah, and if I can just say, I am, and Darius and I both are really, really excited to keep the conversation going. So please do reach out to us. Don't feel like you have to go through any proper channels or anything. If you get on the website, you can find us, or I'm just Romy Pittman at Gmail.
Yep.
I just want to say thank you. And I think it's, as long as I've been myself on the commission, which I think has been since 2011 or 12, and it's actually been here since 2006. Whenever Darius comes before the commission, always good things are coming out of it. So thank you.
Absolutely. Amazing.
Enid has one quick comment. You have to turn your microphone on, Enid.
Darius, maybe I missed it, but you failed to say what your position was in this. You seem like to be the brain child behind it, but can you tell me what is your position in this?
I don't want to sing it, but I'm the president of the board.
Okay.
Yeah. So thanks for asking, and please forgive me. I'm probably a little nervous in the beginning. Much less nervous than I was when I said that I was a former graduate of Annapolis High School, and Joanna Tobin said, "You weren't a former graduate; you were just a graduate." So yeah, I'm the president of the board. I have the privilege and honor to serve as president.
Okay, great.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Okay,
And
I'm
thanks,
going to
Ms.
move on to
Presley,
just
for your
a
comment.
few updates in our next discussion on the agenda. I do want to mention the City of Annapolis Comprehensive Plan. Comments are due by September 21st, I believe. And it's been out for review. There's copies of it online, and I'll send those around, and on and at the libraries and stuff, you can leaf through it. The one thing as I was flipping through it at the Eastport Library that I noticed is it is spectacularly non-inclusive of educational facilities. So it has this map of all the schools in Annapolis and some strange little half-mile radius of safe walking zones. And it doesn't even show Annapolis High. So there's nothing except for over-enrollment issues mentioned in the plan. There's no mention that 2,200 students have to get back and forth to Annapolis High every single day as part of our comprehensive planning. I think there's a huge oversight of what the student body and what the city's planning should work around. And we've, I worked with a planning director when Crystal Spring Farm was going to come next to Annapolis Middle School. And I sat in a meeting, and he said to me, wow, Annapolis Middle School wasn't on my radar for 1,000 students having to come in and out of that school every day. And that shocked me, but it was true that, it wasn't on the city's radar, the needs of our schools and our transportation and what our Annapolis City students need to get around town to be successful. So yeah, this is the map. And so they even show schools outside of the city limits, like Rolling Knolls, but there's no evidence in the plan that Annapolis High exists.
It also shows a half-mile trip to school around the middle schools.
Yeah, which is a mile and a half walking radius. So
exactly. So
this is done by consultants. I'm gonna write up some comments, but I also encourage the rest of you to write up some comments and just let them know this is wholly inadequate about how the city should be planning for the needs of their students. So if other people can comment that, I'd appreciate that.
Jess has her hand up.
Jess, okay, you can take that map off. Thanks, Laura. Jess, quickly.
If we were doing announcements, I was just going to do an announcement about Eastport Elementary at long last, since I think 2015, 14, when the basketball court was first taken out to build the new addition. We finally have our full-size basketball court back. For those who know, the basketball court at Eastport has a lot of the one that was taken out had a lot of history on that basketball court, and basketball in Eastport is pretty important. So we are really excited that the final portion of the Play Eastport program is the basketball court, and it has hoops, and it's a full-size basketball court, and everyone should go play ball at Eastport.
That is awesome, and a real testament to the determination of the parent community and the surrounding community. Thank you.
By
Jessica.
pure happenstance, my son, who has been waiting since, I don't know, 4th grade to play basketball again on a full-size basketball court, we were picking up Louis. They put the hoops in on Monday, on the day when the high schoolers didn't have school. And so he got to be like the first or one of the very first kids to throw balls.
That's
But anyway,
awesome.
very, very exciting.
lot of hard work there. Thank you. Does anyone else have any? So Laura, you were going to mention the girls volleyball team at AMS and Bates.
I have a flyer. Let me bring that up.
Talking about more sports opportunities that our middle schools and elementary schools are lacking that other jurisdictions have for their middle school programs.
Yep. And this is something Emily Tomasini put together. We have a youth volleyball program for the 12U that is registered with the county so they can compete and play against other teams in the county. It's going to practice at AMS, but they have a group of parents that have organized it so they can carpool, and they've got a group that will provide transportation if your kid is at Bates to get them over to AMS. So this is kind of a pilot program. Sometimes it's hard to fill teams. So Emily wanted to have kids both from Bates and AMS to make sure that she had enough kids to field a team. But we'd like to see more. There's sort of, as you know, we all know in this commission, but there's sort of a gap between city and the county. And the county has a lot of teams, and there's a lot more support for outside of the city limits. Within the city limits, there haven't been as many opportunities. And since the middle schools don't tend to have their own sports teams, there's not as many opportunities for kids if they're not able to afford to or have parent who can commit to the expense and the travel of doing county teams. That's just not an avenue that's open to a lot of our students. So this is something that is sort of like Emily describes it as a pilot, and hopefully this will be successful and we can launch more opportunities like that for kids elsewhere in the city.
Very exciting, Laura. Thank you so much for mentioning that and bringing that up.
Yeah, there's a couple other things. There's a teen book club that's going on at the library. So again, something else to try to encourage kids to get out of the house. They've got pizza. Sounds like a fun thing. They just sent information about that out today.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Okay. We've sent our notices out to all the PTA leaders within of every elementary, middle, and high school here. But we haven't gotten much involvement back from them this year. So aside from our lovely 2 commissioners and Jamie representing Germantown PTA, but if you can get them to bring issues to us, bring events to us that we can publicize, that we can help them with, if they want to know what other schools are doing for clubs, robotics or stock market club or other things, you really learn so much more what other people are doing and what schools and other clusters have if you get connected. So we want to maximize opportunities at every single level. So please encourage your home schools to reach out to us so that we can get in touch with them. Enid has a quick question.
I just want a quick announcement. I just want to tell everybody, please come out for the Kunta Kinte Heritage Festival, where, don't forget, now we're going to have special person coming at the children's table, learning how to make instruments and African hats. We also have an opportunity for people who need volunteer service credits. They can get that. We have the forms there. So please, and of course, there's plenty of food for everyone, all types, all cultures. So make sure that you come out.
That's a super fun event. Now, what is the date, time
September
and location?
23rd.
September
Saturday,
23rd.
September 23rd from 10 to 7.
10 to 7 p.m. It's really fun. They have great music, great vendors, super friendly people. And that's at the City Dock again. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So put that on your calendars and
come see our table too.
Oh, great. New Village will be there. All righty. So any other new business that anyone would like to raise? Otherwise, I'm going to mention that please put on your calendars, our next meeting is going to be September 27th. It is the fourth Wednesday of the month, which is our normal meeting time, the fourth Wednesday, 6 p.m. by Zoom. I will not be here and Laura Booth will be running the meeting. And I believe that that Bob Mosier and Jolynn Davis will hopefully be able to attend that. So get your questions into them. If you email us at the Annapolis Education Commission at gmail.com, we'll forward those questions to Bob and Jolynn early so that they can be prepared to answer some things that you have pressing on. And we're going to try and get the school improvement plans for every single level from them so that we know what is the school district doing, what are they prioritizing at each school. So hearing no other new business,
Jan, if I could,
Yes.
30 seconds. I just want to impress upon everyone, both on the commission and anyone watching, how important it is to reach out to the city's planning department and communicate about what I call a human service instilling and human service master plan overlay over the capital plan. Because if they leave out children, if they leave out educational centers, then they've let the human element completely out of the project. If it's not tied to something that's generating revenue through business and not understanding that you generate revenue and you invest in those students, then the revenue will come, right? And so I just want to impress upon everyone I'm going to definitely do it myself, but to encourage everyone to write, call, and make sure that this is on the map.
Yes, thank you. I'm a big cycler. I love cycling around town, had my tailbone broken by traffic and all that, but like there's so much more about bike paths in this entire comprehensive plan than there is anything about kids. It's been a real gap that needs to be filled, as you said. Speak up for the needs of kids to thrive in this city.
The needs of residents in general. Services for residents should be the primary. I mean, that should be the thing, because happy residents makes happy everything else.
Happy economy. Yeah.
Making sure that our residents are
well taken care of by the structural logistics of our city. Yeah. I'm going to entertain a motion from anyone who.
Actually, did have one more thing. I just wanted to say, if you keep an eye on the Annapolis High Facebook group, you can search it with AHUK. We always need volunteers to support our PTSA and our students and all of our sports and various clubs by volunteering at the Commanders games, where we run kitchens for the Dream Seats, and it's a fantastic opportunity, both to raise money for the school and also to see Commanders games. So it's fun. So please, if you're on Facebook, keep an eye out on that. We always need volunteers. So thank you.
Great reminder. And also, if parents are new to Annapolis High, and transitioning, make sure they know about that page. It's open posting. So if a parent says, how do I figure out X? Or where's a good place to get a tutor for this? Or my kid doesn't know anything about that. Other parents will answer the question. Some of the school administrators are on there. So it really is a source to help, we all know that our high school is a very large, like battleship cruiser city of that's hard to navigate when you're a new family. So encourage them to use that page for their information and seeking others to help them. All right, now I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn, and please put the September 27th meeting 6 p.m. on your calendar by Zoom.
I'll make a motion that the meeting be dismissed.
Thank you. Thank you, Enid. Any second for the motion?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? Great. Thank you all for your participation and everything you guys do all throughout our.
Thank you all so much for your
Thank you.
support and for listening to